And back on the podcast, you heard him a couple weeks ago on our mock draft, and you've heard him before. Nate Davis, my colleague from USA Today Sports. Nate, how we doing?
Well, Mike, I mean, you threw out a lot of praise and plaudits for Mike Mittelhurst-Schwartz as the draft guy in that last podcast. And, of course, my mock draft was better than his. You know, he didn't even get past number. So, anyway, if you feel like apologizing at any point today, we'll make sure he sees it, you know, and views this podcast. So, otherwise, I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm. That's why I picked you to come back on. You did a lot of schedule breakdown stuff. MMS did a lot of schedule breakdown stuff, but I picked you because I said, hey, I got to go with the guy who's more accurate. So there, you know.
MMS doesn't know anything about Jays either. So, I mean, you know, there's, you know, once you kind of get outside football, what are you going to get with that guy, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I've got the more well-rounded, you know, also the fashionable shoe guy. We see the background, the Star Wars guy. So, you know, I knew that we'd be able to cover a lot of stuff. So that's why I had you back on here.
You want to talk about Liz Cheney? Probably not.
No, that's okay.
Well, make sure MMS is tagged on this podcast. That's all I ask.
Yeah. We'll make sure we send him a link to this. But you know, I wanted to have you on so we could talk about the schedule. It always kind of feels like that. You know, it's amazing to me that the NFL turns this thing into a whole big production. And then yesterday, announcing the week 1 games in the morning, and then the anticipation. You know, I thought it was smart because somebody always leaks a couple openers. So that way they got the week 1 out the way, and then we went to the whole television broadcast production in the evening. But overall, what did you think of the schedule? What kind of stood out to you as those games start trickling out, and as you got a glimpse at the full schedule a little bit ahead of time?
Well, to piggyback on your first point, I mean, it definitely is the NFL hype machine at its very best. I mean, people think it's crazy that, you know, we all tune in to watch guys running in spandex in February, but to get to the point where you're having your broadcast partners leak out the first week on the morning news shows, and, you know, this becomes a full day event. I mean, and I'm thinking, you know, MLS and NBA and baseball, I mean, they just have to look at this and be like, you know, how do they, you know, release a schedule and get a full day's worth of attention? And we can't even get them to pay attention to our draft unless you're talking about, you know, the top 5 picks in the NBA. I mean, otherwise, who cares? So it is crazy, but yeah, I mean, it was the annual interesting, overhyped, but kind of cool day. And my first reaction was probably the first thing you saw was that it was Bucks Cowboys out of the chute, which is, you know, classic NFL. What a great way to start your season with Dak's return against Brady. I was a little surprised actually that they burned that game that early on, but I think it's cool. I think it's a great way to start. You know, last game of the 2020 season in Tampa Bay, first game of 2021 in Tampa Bay. So I like the symmetry there. And then otherwise, I think I kind of like the balance. You know, I saw that 10 teams got 5 primetime games this year, or at least to start out with. So that's a good balance, I think, too. And you don't feel like that one particular team necessarily is getting force fed to you all the time. So I think maybe those are some initial quick knee-jerk thoughts I had.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that was a good move with the, I mean, I would have loved to have broken tradition and had Tom Brady open the season at New England to kick it off, but we knew that wasn't going to happen. But so I thought it made sense. America's team, Dak returned versus the Super Bowl champs, you know, for week 1.
Yeah, I got to share one good nugget on that I got from my man, Kyle Brady on Good Morning Football. But Brady could actually, and usually these return games, I mean, I guess Joe Montana versus Steve Young, if memory serves, was pretty early. That was like week 2 or 3 back in the day. But Peyton Manning to Indianapolis was like the middle of the season. I think Brett Favre to Green Bay was middle of the season. So week 4 is a little early. However, there's a good chance that Brady will break the all-time passing record for yards, Drew Brees, in New England that night.
Yeah.
How crazy would that be if he breaks that record in front of the Foxborough fans and they got to, you know, what do they actually, I mean, they'll probably stop the game for a second, but what kind of love fest is involved at that point? That's going to be a really cool game to see, just to see, you know, how much love is it, and do they actually boo the first time if Dante sacks him or whatever. So can't wait to see that one.
Yeah, that return is going to be interesting because, you know, he always used to run out to the Jay-Z, you know, allow me to reintroduce myself. It would just be perfect if the Patriots kind of did that for him as he came out for his warm-ups. Because, I mean, look, yeah, I know he left you for someone else and he won a Super Bowl, but, you know, he did a lot for that franchise. I think he deserves to have them kind of tip the cap and give him a warm response there.
Well, it'd even be a fascinating to know what's going on in the back rooms of New England. Is Robert Kraft like, oh, he can have public service announcement? Bill's like, no way, nothing. No introduction. It's the football game. You know, it's you know, next up is the Buccaneers. You know, who cares who the quarterback is? So that's going to be an interesting push-pull too. I think probably just internally for the Patriots for how much love and acknowledgement they show him, but they've got to show him some. I mean, it's not like he left on bad terms, but
right.
You know, he did want to do it another way.
Exactly. Was there another game week 1 that kind of stood out to you? I mean, obviously every single game is big week 1, but I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of great matchups. I mean, the Steelers at the Bills, the Browns at the Chiefs is probably my favorite after the opening game. Then the Dolphins at the Patriots. But I felt like everything else was kind of like, oh, okay, all right, that's kind of nice.
I appreciate the amount of times you have me on your podcast, Mike. The one bad thing is that you and I actually, as it turns out, you know, as much as we like to pick at each other, we usually actually agree about most of these things. So, I mean, I think it's cool, like that the Rams and the Raiders both get primetime slots to actually open their stadiums with their fans, you know, in there for the first time in a regular season. I remember last year it was going to be Cowboys opening, you know, against the Rams, but of course, you know, SoFi had to be empty for that. Same deal with the Raiders. So I think both of those are kind of cool. I mean, I think probably the best Sunday game is in theory is Packers Saints. Maybe I guess of course it could end up being, for all we know, Blake Bortles against Taysom Hill, and maybe you know that won't be as fun to watch. Right. I will say too, you know, one thing I made a note of in my winners and losers is I kind of wonder if our friends at the NFL or Mike North or somebody, if they got confused on their cats, because they've got the Jets playing the Panthers in week 1 and they've got the Jets playing the Jaguars in week 16. And I think it would have been so much cooler to have Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson in week 1 when the game, you know, was interesting and it mattered to both teams, and kind of do the Zach Wilson versus Sam Darnold, which is of course going to be a huge referendum in the Big Apple. Do it later in the season when kind of both guys have their feet under them and time in their new systems. So I kind of hated the way that they did that order. But I mean, that stood out to me, that I thought, you know, Zach Wilson versus Sam Darnold or Zach Wilson versus Trevor Lawrence would have been a nice Thursday night game for teams that you're usually not going to feature in primetime slots. Yeah. But still, it's going to be interesting. And I actually think the Panthers have a chance to be a wild card team this year. I mean, they got a lot of good players in that team.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do like the Rams opening their new stadium with the Sunday night game and the Raiders opening Monday night. But I didn't like the Bears as an opponent. Couldn't you have put something more compelling? I guess you wanted to make sure they won at home, maybe. I don't know. But couldn't you have given us somebody more sexy than the Bears to play the Rams for that opening week on Sunday Night Football?
Well, I got to say, Bears fans kind of hate me because I tend to usually skew towards downgrading their team. I mean, I thought they were going to be a lot worse than 500 last year, but I mean, they were among the worst 500 teams I can ever recall watching play football. But yeah. I tend to agree. And then, I mean, I guess the interesting thing is if Justin Fields does somehow win that job out of the chute, I mean, it seems like probably Andy Dalton will start that game. But yeah, it's not a super compelling matchup. And frankly, I was surprised. I think the Bears, including the fact that they're playing on Thanksgiving, are featured in 5 national games, if you count Thanksgiving. And that does feel like a whole lot of Bears to me for a team that I don't think is going to be, unless, you know, the Packers fall apart and Rodgers, you know, is traded or retires or whatever, you know, at that point, I mean, the NFC North becomes pretty ugly. So I guess maybe we will get interested at some point, but I tend to think the same way, that's not what I'm going to circle on my calendar because I want to watch the Bears on Sunday night.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get that, but you know, again, at least the odds are in the Rams' favor of Matthew Stafford kicking off. I mean, or maybe they're like, hey, it's good. Matthew Stafford's got a familiar opponent to attack as he kicks off his Rams tenure there too.
I mean, you got some pretty good contacts with the Rams there. I mean, I think to me they're a top 5 team. I mean, to me they're a team we ought to be talking about as one of the 2 or 3 best in the NFC and a legit Super Bowl contender. So I will be excited to see how that looks with Matthew Stafford making his debut with them, and just how that offense looks with a quarterback that we think actually does, can do more outside of what Sean McVay tells him to, allegedly. So that will be fun, and theoretically against a legit Bears defense, so they will be breaking in a new coordinator. So that definitely has the potential to be a walkover kind of game, like you said. That could be 35-13 Rams and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I used to see Sean McVay dialing it up like crazy. Deshaun Jackson turning back the clock and torching them, and Raheem Morris dialing up all kinds of pressures to come at Andy Dalton. That's just
And if it is Justin Fields, do you really want to break him in against Aaron Donald?
No, right? No, you're gonna wait. You're gonna wait before you roll that kid out there. I think that they'll try to give him as much of the year as they can to redshirt and watch. But you definitely ain't gonna roll him out there week 1 unless Andy Dalton just looks terrible.
Here's my other wild offshoot theory. Just you know what should happen is the Bears should trade Andy Dalton to the Patriots for Cam Newton, because both those offenses would make so much more sense if Justin Fields was coming in behind Cam and Mac Jones was coming in behind Andy Dalton. This takes me back, and probably you too, to both these teams to some degree. But when they talk about, we'll mix Mac Jones in a little bit for a package, or we'll mix, they're not talking about it, but if it gets to this point, or we'll mix in Justin Fields for a pack. Remember how bad the Ravens looked when they tried to do that with Lamar Jackson and Flacco, who just couldn't be 2 different kind of quarterbacks. But that offense was such a mess in 2018 until they finally just were like, look, we're just going to go with Lamar. And then they were like awesome.
Right.
That point out. But I was thinking earlier, they ought to flip Andy Dalton and Cam, because it would be better for probably those guys, and certainly for the rookies to come in seamlessly behind those kind of players. So
yeah, I agree with you, which is why I felt like, I thought it would be ridiculous to see Justin Fields slide that far down the draft, but I did think, hey, that would be a good spot for him because the offenses would be similar. He's compared to Cam and everything. But yeah, the Mac Jones, like switching from Cam to Jones or Dalton to Justin Fields. I
think Justin's probably in the better spot though. I think Matt Nagy is a good coach for him, and like he can teach that kind of offense. And I think Andy Dalton will probably embrace the mentorship role. I think Cam. I'm not shading Cam, but I think Cam still views himself as a guy that's a not too far removed from being a league MVP, and like he's not ready to get shuttled out the door for Mac Jones. So I think Justin Fields probably is overall in the better situation.
Yeah. For week 2, was there anything that stood out to you? Was there a game that you liked? You're probably gonna say I'll let you say it first, because you're probably gonna say the exact same thing I'm gonna say for your favorite week 2 game.
My favorite week 2 game. It's probably got to be Kansas City, Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
Which did you cover last year, and it turned out it wasn't a great game, and maybe the rematch is.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest game. The defense did a good job. It wasn't until late that all of a sudden that Mahomes and them got going, I think, from what I recall. It's starting to run together, but I do think that's a big game more so for Lamar and the Ravens than it is for the Chiefs, I feel like.
I think so. I definitely am glad though that Lamar got the playoff win last year. I mean, admittedly I was kind of the one that started to wonder, having seen him lose some big games, is he going to fall into this bucket if he's great in the regular season and not great when it counts? But and that is one of the other cool things about the schedule, is you're going to see Lamar versus Pat, and then you're going to see Rodgers play both of those guys for the first time, assuming Rodgers is playing in the NFL in 2021. But Aaron Rodgers has never faced off against either one. I mean, the last time the Packers played the Chiefs was when Mahomes was hurt, and I think it was Rodgers and Matt Moore. So, yeah. But yeah, that'll be a great warm up for those 2 upcoming games for both those young guys to play. Currently the guy who's on top.
Yeah, and I know that when I had him on the podcast last year, he had said that he was kind of like he was a little disappointed that he hadn't gotten to play against Mahomes yet, and he was looking forward to doing that in the future. So that will be, you know, the
Rodgers told you that?
Yeah, yep. You know, we were talking about the young quarterbacks, and that was one. He's like, man, I haven't gotten to play against him yet. I really would like to. That would be fun. So hopefully he's still there.
Or, you know, if he's traded, and, you know, we all think it could be Denver. You know,
Denver or the Raiders. See, I think the Raiders more than Denver, but either way, he would see them twice.
Yeah, that's another interesting discussion too. People are getting, you know, I'll probably end up trying to figure out how he fits with all 31 teams, but you see some crazy stuff out there, and I realize, hey, you know, Aaron Rodgers and Sean Payton is a interesting combination, and how cool would that be? But the Saints have no money. Like, you can't just wait for the guy, you know, and not pay him the $16 million he's got coming, particularly when you got to blow up your own roster just to create the cap room to get him. So, you know, and I thought, you know, I think to what you said, the Raiders is not. They're more at least in the realistic thing, because they don't have much money either, but I think they could more easily find some. And I think for Aaron Rodgers, you know, going to that offense and living tax-free in Nevada and pretty close to where his wife needs to be in Hollywood, that trade-off.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I just think their roster is more attractive if you're him, thinking about, okay, you got a good, young, talented tight end, got a good running back, you know, you got some talent wide receiver as well. Building.
They do play defense in Denver, though, Mike. You know that.
Yes. I am aware.
We haven't figured that out in Las Vegas yet.
True. But, you know, we'll see. Give me like 3 games over the course of the season that you're really looking forward to, if you had to pick them.
3 over the course of the season. You know, I think I really like. I think I mentioned the Rams being a team that I like in the NFC that maybe we're not talking about quite enough. I think one of my AFC version of that would be Cleveland, and maybe we are talking about them enough. But I think after 2 years ago when they were, you know, had the 3 primetime games in the first 5 weeks on their way to 6-10. I don't know if they're under the radar right now, but I don't feel like people are, you know, maybe talking about them as a Super Bowl team as much. I think they ought to be. You know, you touched on Ravens, Kansas City, which will be the playoff rematch in week 1. That'll be fun, but they've got they play the Ravens twice, sandwiched around their bye, November 28th and December 12th. Yeah. If people remember last year, that Monday night game when the Ravens played at Cleveland, and, you know, Lamar, you know, limped off the field for whatever reason and came back, and that may have been the best game of the regular season last year. So I think those will be fun to watch. Certainly, you know, I'm intrigued by the Packers. You know, just what are they going to be? But, you know, we touched on Rodgers versus Mahomes and Rodgers versus Lamar. I think Rodgers versus, you know, Washington again, you know, and Rodgers versus Chase Young, you know, he'll be up for that game. And then I guess last I got to look at Tampa Bay and what are your favorite ones there? And of course, you know, we love the Patriots match, as everyone does, but Bucks at Rams in week 3, I believe beat them out in Tampa last year, late in the season. So that'll be a interesting rematch. I mean, Tom Brady, I think, still has a home out in LA. So it'd be cool for him to go out there, and certainly be curious to see Bucks versus presumably Jameis twice. And you know, last time we saw him, he was throwing the 56-yard touchdown pass in the playoffs against the Bucks and his one snap there. But I am curious to see. I'm kind of honestly rooting for Jameis a little bit. I kind of hope that the gap year in New Orleans and kind of getting to learn offense from Sean Payton, and it's really cool to see the relationship that he and Drew Brees built and how emotional he got about that. I'm really curious to see how Jameis does in this offense, and certainly what it looks like, you know, 2 times presumably against the Bucks. So those would be a couple off the top of my head.
Yeah, I really am. I go back and forth with what I think is going to happen there. I do think that, you know, he probably is, you know, matured a little bit and hopefully learned a little bit, make better decision making and things like that. You know, we'll see. I can't, but part of me feels like the Saints are just going to be kind of bad this year.
Really?
You know, well, I mean, I just feel like that they'll be in games, but their quarterback play could be really bad. You know what I mean? Like they'll be in games and then, oh, there's another Jameis pick six, you know, or, oh, they go to Taysom Hill and it's just not, you know, they've got a really good defense. They've got some weapons and stuff, but I just feel like not bad, but just really kind of maddening where they're just like, if they only had Drew Brees, you know?
There is that, but I mean, I guess the glass half full thing. I mean, in 2019, I think Jameis was 33 touchdowns and 30 picks. Mm-hmm. Although I like to call it 40 touchdowns because he threw 7 touchdowns to the other team that year. But if he cuts that in half, I think the other aspect of that too is that Jameis can like put the ball at points of the field that frankly Drew Brees couldn't anymore.
Right.
And can he like actually, you know, Michael Thomas played in 4 games last year and wasn't really healthy all season. He got hurt in week 1. So if you've got a full use of Michael Thomas and you're able to mix in some of the speed guys and you know, obviously Alvin Kamara is there, you may be right. I mean, it could go bad, but it could go the other way. I mean, Thomas is he threw for 5,000 yards, which I realize part of that is volume, but I mean, not just anybody can go out there and throw for 5,000 yards. So we'll see what happens, but I am curious to see how it works. And you know, I do have a lot of confidence, you know, that as much as we love to talk about Kyle Shanahan and what a great play caller he is, I kind of feel like Sean Payton's kind of the OG in that category as far as coaches in the league right now, and a guy that really knows offense and schemes stuff up and puts his guys in good spots. So I can't wait to see how that goes. And I hope it goes well for them. And I think it's better if the Saints are good. And
right.
I don't really want to see the Bucs go 20-0 just because I think it'd be interesting, but it'd be kind of boring too. So
yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to, I mean, I said I missed one, my week 1, the Browns at Kansas City, I think would be a really good measuring stick game. I don't know how it's going to play out, but the Browns, you know, got to playoffs, face Kansas City, you know, and lost with Patrick Mahomes hurt, but seeing where the Browns are out the gates against Kansas City will be good. The Packers versus the Chiefs, like we said, Packers versus the Seahawks. 2 of those, you know, one thing Roger said is he kind of feels like if he has a real rival, Wilson is that guy because Wilson's gotten the better of him. So if he's there, still, that would be a good game when they play each other. And the Bills versus the Chiefs. I think that the Bills are going to be good. I think that they're going to continue to take steps forward, but this will be a good measuring stick game for them. Hopefully they don't do what the Bills do and kind of, you know, disappoint after a good year. But I'm looking forward
to that. That is another team we're probably not talking about as much. And it was interesting to me that the Bills were not one of the teams that got a bunch of primetime games, and they only got one primetime game at home, although that is against the Patriots. So I'm sure the Bills Mafia will love that. But I don't know. I'm having a little trouble getting excited about the Bills, and it's nothing against the team or Josh Allen, but it seems like it's really kind of Josh Allen or bust. And it's Stephon Diggs with those guys, but I'd like to see them have like I mean, they got like good players in defense, but I'm not sure they really got a premier guy, and they don't really run the ball that well. So I don't know. I'm having trouble getting excited about the Bills to some degree. I don't know how you feel about that. But.
Yeah, no, I again, like I feel like they can be good, but I think until I see them string together, you know, success consecutive years, I'm not going to totally believe in them. You know, I know Josh Allen really had like an MVP caliber season last year. But for some reason, I'm kind of, you know, a little bit skeptical of them. But, you know.
If memory serves too, you might still have PTSD because I want to say you covered that Bills-Jaguars playoff game a few years ago. Or you've ever recovered from that? It was one of the worst playoff games I think ever.
It was like 9-7 or something like that. It was something really bad. Blake
versus Tyrod. I think Tyrod got hurt.
Yeah.
Did Nathan Peterman show up in that game for a minute?
Yeah. It wasn't a good game at all. But then
the point being is even when the Bills are good, you know, sometimes you don't trust them.
Right, exactly. And then they were against Houston, and you know, Deshaun Watson made that amazing escape and play and everything. So I kind of like, we'll see with the Bills. Was there anybody's schedule that you really liked a lot? Like if you had picked one team that you're like, hey, this is a good favorable schedule, and I like the way it balanced out and everything, what would that be?
I don't know if there was a team schedule that stuck out to me. I mean, you wrote a nice column that's on USAtoday.com about how it sets up pretty well for the Bucks, and like they are kind of more front loaded with their tough games, and I think they end up. I think the end is Panthers, Jets, Panthers, like all.
Yeah.
Is that right? So I don't think the league sets out to do them any favors, but I think at the end of the day, maybe they kind of did. But I look more just kind of quirks and aspects of schedules, like Washington, for instance. Since the league expanded and went to the eight division format, they're going to end with 5 straight NFC East opponents, which has never happened since 2002. It hasn't happened at all since 1995. So I thought that was interesting because, I mean, for a team that won it at the last minute last year, to have all your division games backloaded, I mean, even if they start a little slow with Ryan Fitzpatrick or whatever, that's going to give them an opportunity to kind of stay, I think, in the division race and control their fate to some degree, probably to the very end, unless something goes very wrong. We know that division usually is a bunch of teams packed at whatever.
And beating each other up too. I mean, like, oof, you're not going to get a break. Just, bang, bang, body bag game after body bag game.
Sure.
And
one other thing I noticed too, Mike, is just thinking to Russell Wilson. You mentioned him earlier, but I don't know if you heard Mike, but he feels like he's getting hit too much.
Yes.
But I mean, he plays in a division where he's going to see, injuries aside, J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, Nick Bosa, Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd. He'll see them all twice a piece, as we know. But he's also going to see Mike DeForest Buckner, Bud Dupree, T.J. Watt, Cameron Jordan, Chase Young, Khalil Mack. I think might be the last game of the season. So I know they got Gabe Jackson in the offseason, which is great. They got a guard who's a good one, but I think Russell Wilson's going to get hit a lot more this year. So that was something I took away from their schedule. And I wrote this about the Seahawks a little bit. I guess maybe my most recent power rankings, but there's that saying that, like, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Right.
I don't think the Seahawks got better. So I don't know what that says, because the Rams got better. The 49ers got better just by getting healthy. I think the Cardinals should be better. So Seattle's a team I'm a little worried about. Plus the fact that I think Russell and the team both, probably to some degree, but there's some mending offenses I think is going to go on in that locker room. So that was just another thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, I didn't feel like they got for after the kind of the scare that he gave them. You would have thought that they would have done a little bit more. I mean, I know that they went in the draft and got some stuff, but I didn't feel like they dramatically got better. Another team that I don't know, you mentioned that I don't know if the Cardinals got a lot better. I know they got J.J. Watt, but I'm not sure about them. You look at, again, 49ers getting healthy, Rams getting better. They still might be the third or fourth, best team in that division. I mean, Kyler Murray, you hope that he continues to take steps forward, but, I don't know about them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I wish they'd gone to the playoffs last year instead of the Bears. I mean, both teams were 8-8. The Cardinals are certainly more entertaining. But yeah, I mean, you had J.J. Watt, who, he's still a good player. He's not J.J. Watt of 3-time MVP, defensive MVP lore anymore. The A.J. Green signing to me was a little strange, given some of their other needs. But I think with them, I wish they'd run the ball a little more, a little better, meaning not Kyler running it, because I feel like I don't feel like Kyler avoids hits the same way that Russell does, or it seemed like Colin Kaepernick would never get hit back when he ran the ball. He was just gliding away from guys and knew when to get out. I worry about Kyler just getting beat up a little bit in that offense, the way Cliff Kingsbury runs it. And if the solution is Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds, I mean, I really thought Najee Harris would have been a great fit for that team, helping Kyler in a bunch of ways, running the ball, pass catching, whatever. Point being is, I think you're right. I'm a little suspect of them, but we do live in a world now where an entire division could theoretically make the playoffs, and if there's one that could do it, it might be that one.
Yeah, whose schedule I just didn't really feel was Jacksonville. I mean, they've got a boring opener against the Texans, who aren't going to have a good quarterback. I mean, we think it's going to be Tyrod unless he gets hurt. Before that, I mean. And there's just not a lot of, I mean, it's not until I guess week 4 they play Cincinnati. So that'll be Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence. But I just kind of meh about them for a team that's got the number 1 pick. I just, there's not a lot of, unfortunately, they don't, that Jets game and, the day after Christmas, but there's not a lot of exciting matchups there for the rookie. And then maybe that's by design. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of had the same takeaway, and that's why I kind of thought it was a missed opportunity. Like, I realize you don't want to have the Jags, even with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you don't want them on Sunday night football or anything, but I feel like there's an opportunity to have that Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence game on Thursday, which is sometimes a hard matchup to do early in the season. But to have it in week 16, I mean, by that point, I mean, one of those, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys isn't even standing for that game or has been shut down or whatever. But I can't imagine there's going to be a whole lot of playoff implications for Jets Jags in week 16. And then I think he said, I think that game against the Bengals is maybe their only national primetime game.
Yep.
So, I mean, that'll be, a fun game to watch, but I don't know that. Yeah, it does feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. And I mean, I am curious how that team looks with Urban Meyer and if his approach really does work in the NFL. I mean, he still kind of makes me roll my eyes sometimes about all the investment research they did into Trevor Lawrence pick. I mean, really, how hard was that?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think they're going to be a fascinating team. It would be fun to kind of see more of them.
And then we play the Dolphins in London. So that's
I mean, I guess if you want to get up at 9:30 to watch Trevor versus Tua, I mean, is that game on?
That's on CBS. That's October 17th, 9:30. Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be interesting, but there were some interesting decisions. Like I thought, I looked at the Niners schedule and I think they open with 2 games on the East Coast, or at least in the Eastern time zone. And then get I think it's the Packers
in Philly,
and right, and then Seahawks also, I think, and then it's week 5 against JJ Watt, and then week 6 bye. And I kind of wrote, I mean, did Jimmy G get set up there? I mean, they got the early bye, and they got these kind of tough games out of the chute. And does Jimmy G have to go 4-1 to keep his job on the other side of the bye or whatever? So I thought that was just kind of one that I kind of flagged as a I wonder how that's going to go. But other things I just noted too. I am kind of glad that the league got rid of the Monday Night Football doubleheader in week 1.
Oh, you didn't like that?
I mean, I didn't really carry it away, but I got to say, like, when it's midnight and you're watching the Broncos and somebody other West Coast team, and you're just trying to stay awake at that point, like, I always felt like that game was just like, you almost had a football hangover by that point. Did you miss that?
I liked having a Monday Night Football game that was coming on before I was starting to get tired. So I liked having the early one, and then I could make up my mind if I wanted to continue to watch the next one. I would watch till like maybe halftime, and so I kind of liked that. But it is a lot of football back to back, but I kind of liked it.
I'll tell you one other thing, Mike. I'm going to miss. We're not going to have any more 500 teams.
Yeah, yep.
I'm really going to have a hard time getting used to being like the Jaguars are 4-13 this year.
That doesn't even sound right.
It doesn't. It doesn't sound right. Or oh my God, what are the Week 18 playoff implications? Like we got it's just trying to get out of the mindset into this 17 game deal. It's going to be strange. But I do hope it works out for the players. I mean, I know a lot of them are they kind of grudgingly accepted the inevitable with the extra schedule, but I hope that the revenue does make it worth a lot of these guys for the extra 6% physical toll that they're going to put their bodies through. So, but it is going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll be following it all. So we're going to wrap up there. Nate, I really appreciate you jumping on here. Fun talking to you as always. And I'll be talking to you off here before you know it.
Yeah, let's take some time off and not pay attention to the NFL for a few weeks, Mike. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be fantastic. I've got a camping trip coming up in a couple weeks, and I can't wait. And lots of baseball weekends. So
does Aaron Rodgers know when your camping trip is?
I don't know where I'm going to be. There's not going to be any signal, so it's going to be on you guys to take care of it and not me.
Well, maybe you should tell me when your camping trip is, and I'll take vacation at the same time.
We'll leave Jory and JB to handle it. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I will talk to you later.
All right. Good to see you, Mike. Be well.